Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Eric Cass, the community manager here at Established. I want to thank each of you for joining us today. And just let you all know, today marks the first of many webinars to come for the Start of the Year community. For those of you who are new to our community, Established is a consultancy that works with a diverse range of organizations on developing innovation strategies, ecosystem development, communications, and project event strategy and production. Our most known program is Startup of the Year, which is a community resource and program to support and elevate early stage founders. Then it brings us to today. Today, we're going to have a series on startup taxes and how you can leverage R&D credits along with other credits to basically get free money for your company. And with no further ado, I'd like to welcome Ari Salafia to the stage. Aria is the CEO and co-founder of TaxTaker, which is a tax and technology savings company focused on helping put money back into the growing companies' pockets. Over the course of her career, Ari has helped hundreds of companies save tens of millions of dollars on tax credits or through tax credits and other specialty government programs. Welcome, Ari, and it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Hi, Eric. Thanks so much. So happy to be here with this amazing community. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for giving us some of your day. Our promise to you is that you guys are going to leave so much more resourceful about startup tax credits and how to continue to fuel the innovative passions that you guys are working on. We know at TaxTaker that taxes and accounting are probably some of the last things you think about, except for maybe in April, because you have so many more exciting things to be thinking about when you're building your companies. But the problem with putting taxes and accounting kind of strategies to the wayside means that you could be missing out on valuable dollars to boost your efforts over the course of the year. So you are going to be that much richer from today's presentation and that much more ahead of the game, because you're going to learn about some of these real incentives that could help you as soon as today. So the topic today is how to unlock free money for your startup. Let's dive right in. So we're going to go over the research and development tax credit. We're going to share who qualifies, what expenses qualify, how it works, how you can actually get your money. And you might be seeing more information about ERC coming around the bend with kind of news and updates, because there was some improvements made to the CARES Act over the last few months. So we're going to go over how the employee retention credit might be another quick win to boost your bottom line here and now. So we're just going to kick it off with a bang. Did you know that the IRS actually allocates billions of dollars every year to companies investing in innovation? Yes, that's billions with a B. The R&D tax credit is one of the most lucrative ways your company can get money back for every dollar that you're spending. And it's gained a lot of popularity in the last few years because it was recently made a permanent fixture of the tax code. What that really means is you don't have to wait around to see if it's going to be here every year. You can basically just plan for it every single year that you continue to innovate and develop and improve upon your products and technologies. It's recently become the #1 government funded program for early stage companies. And we'll go into this in a little bit more detail, but it's because that you can start taking it from day one of your operations. You don't have to be profitable to be leveraging these tax credits. Basically, it's the US government's way of rewarding businesses that invest in cool stuff. What's really neat about it as well is, as opposed to maybe grants or certain government contracts that companies go after, it's totally proportional to your internal spend. It doesn't have to do with anything due to your revenue or the projects that you might be bidding on, like grants or contracts. It's going to be directly proportional to what you spend every single year. And as that changes, it changes accordingly. And then again, startups can qualify even if they're not in market yet, or operating in losses. Don't have to be profitable to be taking advantage of the R&D credit. So why isn't it important besides all the other things I just said about it? Well, over $18 billion are claimed by companies of all sizes every single year. Huge piece of the pie for companies of all sizes. You know, we throw the Apple and the Amazon logo up here because you might see those headlines, how these companies pay little in taxes every year because they have really strategic accounting departments and advisors. They know how to leverage the tax code to their advantage. But it's not just for the big guys. It's for companies of all sizes. So we want to encourage you to stop leaving money on the table because now you're going to know about this R&D credit. So there's going to be no reason not to go after it. So how do we turn expenses into savings? Well, there's a couple things that we have to go through, and depending on when you incorporated, what your revenue might look like, you can either offset your payroll tax liabilities with these R&D credits or your income tax liabilities. So for many, many years, until it was recently become permanent, companies had to wait around till they were profitable or paying income tax to take advantage of these credits. And we would talk to startups all the time and they go, profitable, if ever, sometimes, right? But if you do have federal income tax, it's a powerful dollar for dollar offset against any current liabilities owed. It's also refundable. You can go back to back years and claim credits that you might have left on the table. And these credits also carry forward for up to 20 years. They're an asset on your balance sheet. We've worked with many companies that have banked these credits, and we've even seen them be used as leverage for the sale of their company. They're valuable even to a buyer. There's also state tax credits available that complement the federal credit. So if you're paying state income taxes, depending on where you and your staff are located, there might be some extra relief there too. And then for these startup companies that are defined as less than 5 years old with less than 5 million in gross receipts, you can utilize this credit a little sooner as a payroll tax offset. So every company across the country that employs employees, you owe FICA taxes. Just like how an employee on every paycheck has to pay FICA taxes, employers also have to pay FICA taxes. So the government recognized that, you know, hiring is a huge, huge component of a business's overall operating costs, and it's hard to have to pay taxes on every single salary. So the R&D credit can actually eliminate that FICA tax liability. So you can start benefiting from these credits once you file as soon as your next pay period. So who tends to qualify? These are the top 4 categories of claimants across the United States. Technology, that's going to be kind of your run-of-the-mill startup. B2B SaaS company can be industry agnostic. This also includes hardware companies, wearable technologies, manufacturing, kind of true product development, but there's even applications through oil and gas that can qualify, even CPG. Life sciences, this is what people tend to think about when they hear R&D, right? Research and development, they think white lab coat, and they're right. Life sciences is a huge claimant of the R&D historically, but we want to talk about how it's not just for scientists. We believe it should be called the innovation credit, just because the applicability is so large. And then engineering, any discipline there, aerospace, even architects and construction companies can qualify. And then there's lots of industries though that often get overlooked, anywhere from wineries and breweries to AI, blockchain, cybersecurity, fitness devices, government contractors, cosmetic, apparel companies. And we'll go through why that applicability is so large, but just want to make this known that it's not just for the folks that are in the research labs to take advantage of, so long that you have any kind of development going on in your business, you should be taking a look. So how do you pre-qualify your company? As with anything related to government, there's pretty lengthy requirements that you have to meet. However, with the R&D credit, it's actually a bit more black and white than companies originally anticipate. So the IRS, when kind of going through this program, they want to kind of see that you're going through processes that quasi emulate a scientific method. So in other words, are you developing a new or improved product or technology? And this doesn't necessarily have to be new to the world. It could be just new to you as a business and taxpayer. Is there uncertainty along the way? You might think you very well might know the outcome, but it's going to take a little bit of time to get there. You are likely going to have to go through some iterations along the way to resolve some of the uncertainty. You know, as businesses, we don't always like to admit that we have failures, but that's a great demonstration of that you're performing R&D. We're not always successful at the get-go, right? And then fundamentally, are your activities based in the hard sciences or computer science? If you say yes to these things, you very likely are eligible for some money back. So how do we actually turn expenses into a credit? So the R&D credit is composed of pretty much 3 to 4 primary buckets of expenses that are going to end up in how you're getting your money back. Oftentimes, the R&D credit is referred to as a wage-driven credit, and that's because internal W-2 payroll is the primary driver and holds the most weight in the R&D tax credit calculation. So that internal W-2 salary payroll, that's going to include direct personnel that are driving your development forward. So think your software engineers, if you're a B2B SaaS company. But one thing that businesses often miss is that we can also take a supervisory and a support level approach. So it's not that if you have to be spending all of your time in the code to be able to qualify. Let's say you're a non-technical co-founder that is still providing requirements and leading some of the product roadmap initiatives, and you're supervising some of your engineers or developers, or going through a feedback loop with them, and changing certain courses along the year. Your time could very well qualify. Same with support level staff there. So all those salaries at different levels of percentages of time can add up to a really nice credit. US-based contractors and services, if you tap into contractors that are here for special projects. So that could be, again, software developers. That could also be lab testing agencies. We see even CPG companies, you know, they're bringing on food scientists for a portion of their projects. A lot of our clients are software companies, and this is a big question we get. Okay, I have outside contractors, but some of them are overseas. Unfortunately, even though we know talent is global, this is a US-based credit, so we can only include US-based contractors. And I'll do you one more. A question we get is, well, what if I pay a US-based agency for my development, but the folks are located elsewhere? It has to be where the activities are located. So you're not going to get disqualified if you have folks overseas. We just can't include those contractor or agency costs if they're performed elsewhere. It's got to be stateside. And that's because the intent behind this credit, after all, is rewarding businesses for investing in technology, promoting job growth here stateside. So we can only include US costs. So supplies, this is mostly going to be for businesses with a physical product or hardware. And that's going to be materials consumed in your prototyping phase, pretty much anything prior to commercialization. And then for our technology businesses, we know that as a startup, you can get lots of really awesome cloud credits through AWS or Google Cloud. But when you do owe those bills, those rack up fast. So we can also include the cloud costs as they relate to your testing and staging environments. So just really quickly, what's not considered R&D? So generally speaking, that's research after commercial production, but we also know that businesses don't just release a product and never make changes. So if you continue to improve upon that product or technology, you can continue to get the R&D credit. That's one kind of beautiful thing about this program is you could be taking this for the life of your business. And as you put together your budgeting and your planning and your next hiring requirements, you can always kind of be thinking, oh, I'm going to be getting a percentage of dollars that I spend every year back. Reverse engineering, market research, even though we know that's expensive, but typically that's a softer science that's not going to qualify. And then funded research. So that might be something under a grant or university kind of situation. The government just doesn't want a company to essentially double dip. So we hear this all the time. Taxes, I don't pay taxes. And I'm also in losses. I'm not profitable. How could I be taking advantage of a tax credit? Again, if your company is less than 5 years old and is making less than $5 million in revenue each year, you can take advantage of R&D credits as a payroll tax offset. So let's say last year in 2021, you had 5 full-time engineers, developers, and some contractors, and your payroll was about $500,000. You would be eligible for probably $50,000 in R&D credits. That's huge, 10% of your spend. Let's say you have that same payroll here in 2022. Your company is going to be responsible for $31,000 in FICA taxes if you have no change, that those salaries remain the same. So the R&D credit can actually eliminate that entire payroll tax liability here in 2022. So that $50,000 basically wipes out the $31,000, and any remaining credit is there to reduce any future payroll. So if you hire more folks this year, you're going to have that kind of piggy bank of credit to just continue to eliminate as your payroll grows. One thing when talking about any type of tax incentive and claiming any type of tax incentive on your return, it's really important that in the background that you have and are retaining good documentation. That's because there's this little kind of bad word that goes around. It's called audit. And sometimes companies get pulled for a review. And so it's really good practice that you have some type of data backup as you go that can basically prove what it is that you're working on. Because if the IRS comes knocking, we just need to be able to pinpoint proper contemporaneous documentation that basically ties your expenses to the projects that you're working on throughout the year. So the IRS doesn't have an exact list that you have to have perfect time tracking or anything like that. But if you do have kind of code commits or tracking, or you even could point to some of your product specifications or roadmaps over the course of the year, those are just generally really good things to be holding on to for the very small chance of review. So how do I actually claim this and what's needed to actually claim the R&D credit? So there's 2 forms if you're a startup claiming the payroll offset. Any company that's claiming the R&D credit is going to be filing Form 6765. This is called the Form Credit for Increasing Research Activities. So this gets included in your tax return every year that you innovate. that reports your R&D credit. If you are claiming the payroll offset, you're also going to be filing Form 8974. We like to call this the connecting form. This essentially connects your tax return to your quarterly payroll. If you are working with pretty much any modern payroll company like a Gusto or a popular PEO, China, JustWorks, et cetera, they know exactly what to do with this form. And even folks like Gusto will process this in real time for you once we calculate the credit. So you'll be getting that every pay period or every quarter from here on out. And then a report. If you're working with any tax credit professional like TaxTaker, you should be getting a summary of how your company qualified for the program and kind of all the meat behind the numbers. This is really important. It's good practice. It also allows for businesses to not have to scramble down the road if they get audited. So if you're working with a CPA or a group like TaxTaker, you should always be getting forms and a technical report proving how you qualified for the credit. So now we're going to transition over to the employee retention credit. This has been huge for companies all over the country and even startups. There's a lot of money on the table, and it's for the taking. And it's kind of going to be one of those things, much like PPP, where it's here today and really here for about 2 years, and then it's gone. It's a one and done. So definitely want to encourage your business to take a look because this is a bit more time sensitive. So as kind of a quick overview, what the ERC is, it was created by Congress, like the PPP and the economic disaster loans, to encourage employers and reward employers that were able to keep employees on their payroll during the last crazy 2 years of the pandemic. What's really neat about this, as opposed to some of the PPP loans, even though we ended up seeing that those applications were pretty easy to be forgiven, is that it's a fully refundable tax credit, meaning there's never going to be an application later on to apply for forgiveness. If you qualify, you're going to apply for the credit, and then you just wait for a check to come in the mail. And it's proportional, excuse me, to a percentage of the employees that you have. And there was a big change in 2021, and now companies that are eligible for ERC can actually get up to $7,000 per quarter per employee. So that racks up really fast. So who is eligible? So one qualification is if your business was shut down partially or fully and had to suspend your operations during a certain length of time. That's one way you can qualify. Another way you can qualify is if you experienced a decline in your revenue. And this is where we have to take kind of a closer look because we have to look at a corresponding quarter. So we would be looking at Q1 through Q4 as it relates to 2021 versus 2020 to 2019. So we're looking at a look back. So you might qualify in one quarter and not the other, and maybe another quarter, maybe it's the entire year. And then the last qualification, this is for startups only. And this is going to be if you started your business at the height of the pandemic. So this is going to be if you started your business after February 15th, 2020, you're going to be eligible for the startup recovery provision, which allows you to take up to 2 quarters in 2021. A little extra kind of bit there. This was sort of a gray area for when did you start your business. The IRS also came out and said, if you also started a new trade of your business, that you might be able to be eligible there as well. So here's a couple quick examples of ERCs that we actually delivered just this last week. One is a cybersecurity company. We have actually been working with them on the R&D tax credit side, and they can claim both, which is really awesome. They have 32 full-time employees. They experienced a 20% decline in revenue in just 1 quarter of 2021, and they got $200,000 in employee retention credits. amazing. They're just waiting for their check. That's the only catch, is the IRS is a bit slow on that front, but they're going to be getting 200 grand here really soon. Another company, they formed in May 2020. They have 10 full-time employees. They have less than 1 million in revenue. And that is actually the extra kicker. If you're under the qualifying recovery startup, is you have to be formed after February 15th, 2020, and also have less than 1 million in revenue. So they were eligible as a recovery startup, and they're going to get 70 grand in ERC here really soon. So really exciting wins of the week. So key takeaways: startups don't have to be profitable to be benefiting from the R&D credit. Timing is everything. It's April, it's tax time. If you have not claimed these credits or haven't looked into these credits yet, go on extension. You don't get punished for going on extension. It's there for a reason. We actually 75% of our clients are on extension. So use this time before April 15th to see if you qualify, because if you do, you want to be putting this on your tax return this year. And we just want to be encouraging you to use the tax code to your advantage. And then also there's these kind of quick wins that might be available to you, like the ERC. And with that, we're going to jump into Q&A here soon, but Austin, I think we should switch things around, because I know some folks came here today and they took a quiz before the call. And if the R&D credit and ERC weren't exciting enough, we did say that we were going to give $1,000 away to one lucky startup. So I think we should do a little bit of a drum roll. What do you think?
Let's do it.
All right. I wish we should have got some music for this.
We definitely should have.
Does anyone know how to do a great drum roll sound?
That's pretty good.
Hey, that's not bad, right?
All right.
So you're mixing up all the folks that took the quiz. Who is going to get $1,000, no strings attached, from TaxTaker today, April 7th? Austin, who's our lucky winner? And let's hope that they're here.
I'm gonna drop the name in the chat in 3, 2, 1.
Nico Ramirez.
Nico.
Oh, that is such great news. Oh, hello, everybody.
Nico, what's up, man?
Nico.
Hi, how are you guys?
Hey, we're so glad you're here. Do you want to stand up and tell us about your business?
Of course, I would love to.
Awesome. And nice to meet you.
My camera is not working at this very moment, so bear with me on that.
Hey, we're just glad you're here.
That's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So we're on the mission to reinvent traditional laundry machines and revolutionize the process of laundry as a whole. And how we're doing that is we're taking what today is two gigantic, inefficient machines, and we're turning it into one innovative device that makes laundry effortless. If you would like to see a picture of our product, I'm going to send it here in the chat. It's a 2-in-1 washer and dryer with a fully autonomous cycle. So it allows you to do laundry wherever you want, reduces your carbon footprint, and takes away the need to commute, switch loads, ever have dirty clothes ever again. So yeah, we're on that mission, and we hope to launch in a few months.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
Oh, we are so glad to meet you. I personally think I need to get on your pre-order list. I have a new 5-month-old baby girl, so I have never done more laundry in my life.
Yeah, we should hear that a lot from mothers, especially.
Yeah, well, awesome. Thanks so much for sharing what you're working on. Austin, you want to connect? I'm sure you have Nico's email since he submitted the quiz.
I do, yeah.
So we'll be sending you that grant later today. And thanks so much for joining in, and we're so excited to follow your journey. Textbook R&D right there.
Thank you so much. If I could start off with a quick question, is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
So our lead engineer is is based in Pakistan and our contract manufacturing is in China. Does that qualify us for the United States for this tax credit if our engineers aren't living here?
Great question. So the activities do have to be here, US stateside. So unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to include those two expenses. However, we would be able to include potentially your time or anyone else who's supervising or supporting their efforts here in the US.
Okay. So if we don't manufacture inside of the US, the supply cost for the prototyping does not count.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
They've got to be
Thank
here.
you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Of course. Of course. And then let's jump into Austin. Do we have any questions in the chat? I'm seeing one right here. Can you take PPP? Yes, you can get PPP and the R&D credit and the ERC. There is a small adjustment that has to be made inside of the calculation, but good news is you could qualify for all three potentially.
I'm seeing a couple other questions. Is there a tax credit for corporate social responsibility, social impact, sustainability, or climate change?
Is there a specific tax credit for those things?
That's what Darren is asking. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure that there are different types of grants and kind of initiatives for those. We have actually a couple of grant partners. Off the top of my head, I don't know if there's one specifically for social or environmental or corporate impact, but it's pretty amazing how many grants and things like that are out there. So that's absolutely something that we could find out for you or introduce you to one of our grant partners.
I believe Mark Alexander has a question. He's got his hand raised.
Oh, yeah.
Mark, what's your
Come
question?
on up, Mark.
Yes, I just didn't want to have to type this long, drawn out question. So first, thank you all for the information. I got a lot of great notes that I have to follow up on my CPA. You made a reference earlier that I wanted to go back to, and I really appreciate just how busy it can be for entrepreneurs in their startup. So with that said, I wanted to find out what's a good way that I can incorporate into my daily exercise, whether it's monthly or weekly, where I can learn about taxes, where I'm smart enough to be dangerous, but still keep our business on track. So I'm not waiting until March and April to get caught up on opportunities that you guys are talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're always encouraging startups to find great financial advisors like TaxTaker or their CPA or even fractional CFO or bookkeeper, because typically a really good time to be looking at the year ahead is around kind of year end, right? As you're mapping out kind of your budgeting and your tax planning, so that you can also be kind of thinking about what might be on the table. But it's generally really good practice to be thinking about this kind of on a quarterly basis. So kind of a quick check-in with kind of your financial stack and those advisors. There's lots of proactive folks from bookkeeping to tax to even legal, insurance that are looking out for these things as they go. So if you have kind of a constant line of communication to them and you're telling them, hey, like, I need you guys to be kind of looking out for some of these things for me because, you know, I'm focused on, you know, X, Y, and Z over here. Generally they will. We just see businesses that, you know, they don't have great relationships with kind of in their accounting kind of sphere. So that's how they're missing out, because the last thing we want to make you do is, you know, go through a Google search every week or month, what applies to me. But there's really proactive advisors out there that once they know what it is that your business does, they can start to be not only thinking about it, but they can be proactively searching for certain strategies that are going to benefit your bottom line. So that's a long-winded way of saying, tell your accountant, bookkeeper what you're doing and tell them you expect, you know, for them to be coming back to you with strategies, and get to know folks like this, or even, you know, like the last gentleman asked about, you know, climate change initiatives. Like maybe there's a group out there that would note that. And so anytime there'd be a potential contract to come up, they would get notified.
Thank you so much for the information. You're awesome. Thank you, Ari.
Thank you so much, Mark.
It looks like Grab My Bag has their hand raised. Do you want to come up and ask your question?
I like
Yeah,
the
hi
name.
there. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Luggage delivery service from airport baggage claim to the traveler's location. So we are your Uber or Lyft for luggage, according to the press. But my question is for you guys, TaxTaker. So if I wanted to reach out about potentially doing some business with you guys and maybe, having you guys on board for your services, my two main questions are, one, are you guys nationwide, or do you only operate kind of with a certain state and specialize there? And then two, do you guys have any experience, or can you file amendments for companies with some of these advantages that you've been talking about today?
Thank you so much. Yeah, so we can work with a company anywhere in the United States. And Austin, we're going to be sending some info out after, but if you want to pop or Eric got it. There's actually a link with TaxTaker and Startup of the Year. So you can go to that link to book some time with us. And we always provide free estimates of what we might be able to save you. Usually we find that it's usually not so much a matter of if you qualify, but when does it make the most sense for your business? Because we certainly wouldn't want you to go through a whole exercise and not find any money at the end. So a quick conversation with our team can put you in the right direction. And then great question about back years. Oftentimes, there is opportunity on the backside. So we would also make it known to you if there is potential for refund opportunities. When we calculate credits in the current year, we typically have to ask for some prior year financials as well. And so in doing so, that's when we're also kind of looking at those years, making it known to you if you want to go after those years. Though that typically does require amending your tax returns. That's always going to be at your discretion if you want to open up those returns. But generally, if there's enough money on the table, most of our clients say, heck yes, we want to go get that money.
Right.
But great question. Yeah, the federal statute for the R&D credit allows you to go back 3 years. To get any unclaimed money. And then in addition to the federal R&D credit, there's about 38 states that have supplemental state benefits as well.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I'll be reaching out. Nice to meet you guys. I'm Emery.
Thank you, Emery.
Thank you, Emery.
Looks like we also had another question here in the chat. Can you explain what would be the startup tax range if startup is registered in the US, but the team is working outside? Any special tax benefits for startups in 1 to 3 years?
So if the startup is registered in the US, but the team, yeah. So, I mean, for these incentives, it is really limited to US based expenses. Generally speaking, when looking at expenses here stateside, our startup clients just at the federal level are getting somewhere between a 6 and 10% return on their expenses. And then we'd need to just kind of know more information about your company, about, what your corporate tax rate is, to be able to do a match on that. But yeah, for these incentives, for the first few years of your life, if you have US based payroll, the R&D credit is going to give you the most bang for your buck. I like to see this one question. I like this one comment that someone almost left when they heard it was going to be taxes, but they stuck around. So thank you. We're glad you enjoyed it. I should have said this at the beginning. Our promise to you is that we won't bore you too much with taxes, even though we're going to be saying the T word quite a bit today. And then any kind of industry focus qualifies. There was a note about, does fintech or ed tech qualify? Absolutely. So long that you have folks, engineers, developers, anyone that's driving product or technology, the IRS is industry agnostic as to your focus. So from an ed tech or fintech, no distinction. Everyone can get it.
Okay. Could you explain a little bit more about the third-party payroll? If you use them, I kind of
Yes.
went a little faster.
Yeah, so in calculating the credit, you're going to want to work with, a group like TaxTaker and or your CPA. We fit really nicely in the play nicely in the sandbox with everyone because we just do these specialty tax incentives. But if you're working with a third-party payroll provider like a Gusto or a PEO, you're going to go to them or have us help you just process your credits. Once they're finalized, calculated, and reported on the forms, then they need to be taken to the payroll provider for processing. If you're electing that payroll offset, and they're all caught up to speed now. They know what to do with it. The PEOs, they do tend to take a little bit longer because your business might be under their EIN number for certain other advantages. And what they'll do there is they'll process the credits that we provide for you, and then they'll refund you on a quarterly basis. But if you're on like a Gusto or something like that, we can actually get the credits loaded for you in real time. So long-winded way of saying third-party payroll providers will process your R&D credit. They won't generate it for you, but they'll process it.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Well, amazing. We will give everyone the rest of their day back.
Yeah.
We're so pleased to be here again. Thank you, Eric, and the Startup of the Year community Establish. Y'all have just been phenomenal advisors and resources for a bunch of the startups that we know and love. And so we really appreciate you helping spread the message about some of these kind of quick wins that companies can get this tax season, and just so excited to see how much savings is going to turn out after this.
Yeah, thank you, Ari. Thank you, Austin, for joining us today and giving us a great presentation to our community and all the people in attendance. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. This was just a great 40 minutes. And also save the date for our next event coming up at the end of April. It's all about hiring and how you build your team out. And if you want to learn more about the Startup of the Year and you're not familiar with it, I dropped the link in the chat. Please check it out. Reach out to me if you have any questions. We can set up a time to discuss. Again, thank you, Ari and Austin. So great to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.